Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome Miss Mirella Acebo here. She is a life coach, an author, actor, producer, and a storyteller. And we're going to get to know her and have a great conversation. So, Mirella, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, first things first. Hi, Kyle. It's great to be here. Great to
Thank
join
you.
this conversation today. So, a little bit about myself. I'll give you just an overview. I'm born and raised in LA. I live in LA now. Born to a single mom, never met my dad. Went to Arizona, studied school there. I always wanted to be a private investigator. So I studied justice studies and then ended up working in television as an actor. So that is a huge just switch in directions there. So I ended up as an actor, and I've been in the industry for about 20 years. And then about 4 years ago, I decided to become certified as a life coach. I've always been interested in people and conversations and the human experience and getting to know each other's stories and backgrounds, experiences. And I felt like that has always been such a natural part of who I am, is taking interest in other people. So I became certified. And now that's mainly what I do is I help women primarily, but I help my clients just process life week to week, process their emotions. Where are they at? Where are they headed? What's life about for you? So I really just enjoy one-on-one meaningful conversations with people.
Would you mind if I ask you about your testimony?
Yes, absolutely. So I grew up in a Christian home, went to church every Sunday. As I said, it was just my mom and she was she's passed on. So I'm going to speak about her in past tense, but growing up, I just saw her as being such a strong witness of what it looked like to walk by faith. And so growing up, I went through the motions, didn't really feel like it was something maybe I wanted to continue. So as a teenager, once I could make really my own choices, is I decided to walk away from the church for about 10 years and then just live my life for 10 years, lived the college life. I wanted to see what life was like outside of faith, outside of the Christian lifestyle. And so I did that, and I had a lot of fun, I have to say. Just tried a bunch of things and just lived like the world. And when I came back to faith, well, let me back up a little bit. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. And so that's really what started to draw me back to my faith. So I ended up moving back to California, LA, to take care of her. It's just the two of us. And so I decided to leave behind just everything I was doing, my life back in Arizona, moved in with her. And through my care for her, again, she just was such a strong witness to me that even as her health is failing, I could see this inner strength and this inner peace. And she was really just, again, walking by faith. And so that really impressed me because she had every reason in the world to hate her life, be mad at God, just feel all those feelings. And yet she didn't. She was just had this radical acceptance of her health, and she had this confidence of where she was going. So that really did catch my attention. And there came a point where she could no longer drive, and she would ask me to take her to church. And of course, I would take her to church. And that's where God started to draw me back. I think at that point, I was really in need. I didn't even realize I had the need, but I was so overwhelmed with with life, with caring for her, with the emotions that come with taking care of a sick parent. And I just found myself out of answers, not knowing am I doing enough? What's the next thing? How long is she going to live? And there was just so much that was cluttering my mind and such a burden. It just felt like this weight on me, making all these medical decisions for her. So that's what slowly was starting to draw me back. There was a peace that was undeniable that I experienced going back to church, now in a place of need, as opposed to growing up and doing it because this is what my mom does and this is what we do. So it became very experiential for me. I felt a peace. I felt like I'm back home. I don't understand all of it. And in fact, I came back with a lot of questions, a lot of doubt, a lot of things I didn't understand, but I was open to receive more of what I experienced going to church. Yeah.
With acting,
Mhm.
do they look at you like you're crazy or something because you're a Christian?
Most of the time, it doesn't come up. It's not
Really?
something that, yeah, that is ever asked. Now, from my point of view, yes, as an actor, there are things that I knew going into it that I'd be willing to do, not willing to do. And so the conversations really came down to the conversation I had really with my agent. She wanted to know, well, why aren't you willing to go out for that audition if there's, nudity required or is a certain language required? And so when I would read the script, I would say, yeah, this is not something I'm comfortable with doing. So that becomes really a tricky thing, because when you're working with an agent, you're basically agreeing that you're going to go audition to everything that comes their way, and thus
Mhm.
my way, because that's how we get paid by me auditioning. It's a numbers game. So the more I go out and audition and book things, the more both of us get paid. And so a lot of agents, you have to, it is a tricky conversation. The expectation is you don't get a say. As an actor, you don't get a say. This is where you're going to go. This is the time, and this is the role you're going to play. So it was a risk. It was a risk to tell my agent that's not how I'm willing to do this. So if it means you're going to release me, then you're going to have to release me. But I was never released because of my faith. It was a conversation that I had to have, and conversations that required some clarity over why don't I think that raunchy scene isn't funny? And like, well, it's not funny to me, and I can't do it. So yeah, that part got tricky. But I stuck with commercials mainly.
Yeah.
And commercials, generally speaking, are pretty clean, PG-13 perhaps. Yeah, so I ended up doing more commercial work than any other kind of work.
Now, if I read correctly, you at first didn't really want to be married or have kids. What changed all that?
That's right. Oh, I know. Kyle, if you knew me back then in my 20s, I never saw myself as being married or having kids. That was not part of my plan. I was very driven to have a career. Again, I wanted to go into law enforcement. I wanted to travel. As I said before, I was raised by a single mom, so there was no man in the picture for me. So, of course, that, at a young age, I thought, well, I can live a great life on my own, and I don't want to depend on anybody. I certainly don't want to take care of anybody. That just seems like a whole lot of work. And I think over time and through as I matured, and once I came back, things changed when again, going back to my mom's health, coming back and taking care of her changed the way I thought about things, and changed how I thought about family and the importance of having family. And though I came back with the intention of not dating for a while and really just focusing on my mom, that's when I met my husband within 3 months through a mutual friend. And it just wasn't undeniable. This man is a good man. I think I'm interested in now, rethinking some of those earlier decisions I had made about not getting married or having kids. And so I would say now, after we've been married 25 years, my kids are now both adults, and it was the best decision.
Um,
Yeah, one of my proudest decisions.
yeah, I tell you, the my first marriage didn't work out so great, and it took me about 10 years of living. Well, I say on my own. I had a revolving door, I think, of women. And then when I got serious and I met my wife that I have now, and then someone that shared the same values,
Yes.
that's when things changed. I can't even look at another woman.
I love that. And I love what you said about when you got serious. I think that was very well said. And I can relate to that as well. When I got serious about things and was forced, and usually the hardship is what does that. It forces you to really get crystal clear on what's really important in life. And so that hardship with my mom, really, yeah, it forced me to take life really seriously. Not that I wasn't before, but it's a different level that you
Mhm.
start really assessing for your life. What is my life really about? Where am I headed? What's happening? I'm faced with this immortality. My mom is dying. Like, what's going to happen? Yeah. And so in just meeting the right person when you're ripe for it, then right, it leaves you open. It leaves you open to the things that you might have dismissed, in your younger years.
I think the best part of our relationship has been the fact that she's encouraged me to get back on a spiritual path.
Love that. Mm,
I
that's
I can
huge.
exactly, because I don't know how anyone has any hope for the future if you don't
Agreed.
have God in your life.
Agreed. 100%. Yeah,
And you use God's values when you do your life coaching, correct?
absolutely. Yes. Yes. I am a leader in a women's ministry right now. And so I've been doing that for over 10 years, leading women in spiritual growth, spiritual development. And so we use really scripture because that's really where our true help comes from. And the transformation happens from really within, from God's spirit in us, changing us from the inside out. It's not circumstantial. It's really, again, going back to my testimony, it's a peace that he promises us, his very presence that is in us, that helps us see life from a different perspective. And there's newness in that, there's freshness in that. Because when I look out at the world right now, I just feel overwhelmed and defeated and sad and angry, and there's just a little bit of everything, and most of that everything is horrific, and it's a lot of bad news out there. But the good news of the gospel is that we don't have to do this life alone. And in fact, we weren't meant to. We're the ones that walked away from our creator. And so I really believe that the purpose of our journey here, for the amount of years that we exist in this way, it's really for us to return back to our maker and live a different life, the life we were created to live.
Well, I mean, if you go back to Adam and Eve, when God saw Adam was alone,
Mhm.
he took one of his ribs, created woman to be a helpmate,
That's right.
not a slave, a
Correct.
helpmate. And I think a lot of people get it wrong when they say, oh, marriage is 50-50. No, it's 100-100.
Oh yeah.
You
That's
both got to
right.
put into it.
That's right.
And I'm so glad that I have the wife that I have, because we do put 100% into this. When I'm down, she lifts me and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, our kids are all grown up. We got grandkids now.
Mm.
I can't imagine raising kids in schools nowadays. What do you tell women that have children that
Mm-hmm.
are in the school system that we have today?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would start with the conversation about where their faith is at. Are they on a spiritual journey of their own, and what example they're setting? So, not everybody has the means to homeschool. I mean, I would definitely have a conversation. Is that something that you're open to? I mean, I personally would advocate that. I would support somebody who was open to doing that, because some people just aren't. So having that conversation and really it comes down to being an example, I think, in the
Mhm.
home. For sure, school is I think one of the biggest influences on our children, the academics, the peers, the friendships, what is all the things that go on, that makes up the child's life from most of the day for at least 18 years or so. So that's a huge influence. And yeah, so my conversation with that person is, are you willing to do something about that? Or is it something that you see, is a problem? It really, like, as a life coach, I don't particularly give my opinion. Now, if somebody asks me my opinion, I'm more than happy to share from my perspective. But it's really about what is it that the person is looking for clarity on. Where is it that they're heading? What is it that they want for their life, for their family, for their children in the long term? And so when I start hearing things like, I'm paying really close attention to, like, I'm really fearful of, the school system or the academics or what's happening in the world. Okay, let's start having conversations about that. What would that look like if a change could be made, and what changes could be made? So I would absolutely just support somebody who would want to homeschool, or if they could afford, if they had the means for a private school education, to do that as well. Yeah, for somebody who's faith-based, yeah.
Main thing is pay attention to your kids.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, you are an author, so let's talk about your book.
Great. Well, my book is for moms specifically, although I have had dads tell me this book is for dads as well. My book is SOS for the MOM. And yes, it spells mom, but I like the alliteration. So SOS for the MOM, a Christian mom's guide to managing emotions. And so emotions, this topic of emotions is something that really has been on my radar for the last 5 years or so. And I started really just paying attention to conversations I was having with friends and interactions with friends and strangers. And I realized how quickly our conversation goes towards how we're feeling. Oh, I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm stressed out, or, I had a fight with my husband and I'm mad at my kids. And so, the emotion kept coming up for me. And I just became obsessed about that topic, and the fact that, we are here having a human experience. And part of that human experience is an emotional experience as well, that we're constantly feeling something about something. If I'm in traffic, I'm feeling impatient, or I'm not, or I'm having a conversation, I'm feeling something. So I started really just honing in on that. And because I am a mom and I struggled early on, and I could say even still do, with my emotions really taking over sometimes, and that anger that comes over, that maybe anxiety, the worry, for sure, the worry that rises constantly about the future of my kids, and how are my kids doing? How am I doing? How's my husband doing? And so I started to I wanted to write a book. I just felt compelled to write a book about the 10 common emotions that we feel as moms in motherhood. And so the book is 10 chapters, 10 emotions, and then 10 Bible moms that can help us. So as I started just reading the Bible, and I wanted to write a book that was faith-based. So I started thinking, all right, well, what does the Bible have to say about all these emotions, right? Like, what help is there in the Bible? And I started revisiting the stories of the early matriarchs of the faith. So the moms in the book of Genesis, mostly in Genesis. And so that first book in the Bible. And as I started revisiting those stories, I started really unpacking and looking at their stories from the perspective of a mom. What might she have felt? What did Eve feel? Did she feel guilt after giving into temptation? What does it feel like as a mom to have mom guilt over something that we were tempted to do, or failed to do? And so then I started looking at more and more moms. I started looking, and we don't know a lot about the women. I mean, there's really not a lot about them other than the story that is attached to either her or her husband. And as an actor, because this is what I do, I really try to get into the shoes of the person that I'm playing. So bringing that person to life, like what must they have felt? What was the experience? What was it like? What did they have for breakfast that day? What were they wearing? What were all of that? So just total immersion into the stories that I was reading. And the book just unfolded. It became so clear to me that there are 10 moms in the Bible who likely felt these comparable emotions that we feel even today. The suffering that we experience today, loneliness, I talk about that. I talk about being a single mom, and each of them relates to a Bible story. And then also ways to help us manage those overwhelming feelings.
Well, I was a single dad.
Mm-hmm.
Took
Okay.
care of my boys. And I have to say, moms out there, you're a superhero taking care of kids.
Yeah.
It's, it was rough.
Could you relate to the things I was sharing about the emotional experience?
Oh yeah.
Right? What would you say was your primary? What was your like some of your primary
Uh,
emotions?
you know, it's I guess frustration for
Yeah.
one,
Yep, that's a big one.
and it was hard for me not to be angry all the time because I had to put myself back in those shoes of a 14, 15-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
How did I feel when I was that age, and what was the temptations that I had faced? And so I I couldn't be their friend per
Mm-hmm.
se, but I think that we had a relationship to where they felt comfortable enough to come talk to me. So
Mm-hmm.
they told me, well, I found out other things later on in life they didn't tell me, but they told me a lot. And so it's really difficult,
Parenting.
parenting when you're doing it by yourself, because when you're playing the part of both the mom and the dad,
Mm-hmm.
you know, probably going to be labeled a misogynist for this, but men are more apt for reason, as women are more apt towards feelings. And when you're having to do both,
Mm.
you now you know why you need a mom and a dad in the home.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Helpmate. Yeah, for sure. And our emotions are, yeah, they take over. There's they're big. They're big. And a lot of times they really get a handle on us. I mean, I say that they control us in some way. They become sort of the dominant force.
Mhm.
And that's why we have to pay attention to them and find ways to just recognize them and then find ways to be able to manage them. I mean, the emotions are important. They're a gift. They're signaling something, right? In your
Mhm.
case of frustration, they're signaling, okay, things are happening that need my attention, but you and I and everybody also needs ways have to recognize the emotion, validate it for what it is,
Mhm.
welcome it in, and really have compassion for oneself. That, yeah, this is a frustrating situation. So for my frustration is valid. It is valid. And also one of the big conversations I have with the women that I work with is in when you're in a state of this overwhelming emotion, whatever it is, if it's angst, worry, anxiety, we're making decisions all the time. We're making choices all the time. And so when we're in an emotional state, we're not going to make the best choices from a place of frustration. We're going to say and do things we later regret, things that hurt our relationship. And then there's damage control on the other side. So really, a lot of my work or focus is paying attention to the thoughts that we're having or the things that are happening and the emotion that's at the core of it. What is the underlying emotion? And to, again, validate it. This is part of my experience right now. Take a time out, pause if need be, but not make choices or react from a place of that impatience or rage, frustration, because those usually are the decisions that we regret later.
Mhm.
So to be able to manage really ourselves, to regulate ourselves in any given moment, that really takes a lot of intentionality and work. It's easy to be impatient. It's easy to fly off the handles. Like so much of our interactions, I think, with other people, not just our kids, call that out of us. But can we respond in a more disciplined way? And can we learn ways to regulate ourselves so we can make better choices? Because our choices or decisions, they're leading us somewhere. And I think I speak for everybody. We want the happy life. We want good things. We want peace in our lives, but a lot of times we're not acting in alignment with the things that we want, that are good.
Well, I see why it's so important for the two people to have the same values and to be
Yes,
on the same page,
that's right.
because emotions, they can definitely run them amok,
Yeah.
but also that guy who says, hey, it's going to be this way, I'm putting my foot down. You have to reel each other in. That
Yes.
that emotional side makes for better decisions reel in the emotional side. So
I agree. I
yeah.
think you're absolutely right. It's just that balance of both, that
Mm.
polarity that two people bring naturally, but then also just being unified and
Mhm.
growing together, right, in the best possible way.
Are you planning on writing any more books?
I think I have another book in me, but I'm not quite sure
Mhm.
yet what that's going to look like. I think right now I'm still focusing on my my first book and sharing that with others. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
All right, in your life coaching, because I've had a lot of life coaches on the show, I usually ask this question: what sets you apart from other life coaches?
I think my personality, number one, I would say that just in general. I mean, there's a lot of people in any single profession, doctors and lawyers and therapists and such. So what sets any two people apart is that there's only one you, there's only one me. This is how I come. I think I lead with a lot of heart. I lead with a lot of empathy and compassion. And really, my strong suit is my listening skills and just my heart to serve other people. And beyond that, I would say really my emphasis, really my focus being on your emotional state, the person's emotional state, and really just being nurturing to that person, that whatever it is that you're feeling, it's okay. It's okay. We don't have to live guilty or like in judgment of yourself all the time. No, no, no. Let's unpack it. This is a safe place. We can have a conversation and let's set some goals. Let's set our mind on an intention and let's get you where you want to be. So I think that's really, it's just my approach and it's the way I take care of my people.
Oh, what is your website?
My website is lifecoachmom.net.
And
Lifecoachmom. Mhm.
and then of course the evil social media.
I'm really only on the one platform on Instagram, and Life Coaching by Mirella, Mirella. That's my Instagram. Yeah.
Mirella, thank you so much for coming on. This was really a great conversation. I had a great time.
Yeah. Likewise. Thanks, Kyle.
And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. For my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network